Welcome back to Ask Sam at info@ValAsta.net. I'm going to go over a couple things that have come in. One is people wanting to know what we're working on with regard to not just Alzheimer's, which is the basis of this conversation, but we have we have two technologies that we're going to talk about today. One is we've evaluated a product called Enerburn. It reduces engine wear and soot on diesel engines, improves your overall gas mileage by over 20%. These are things that everybody could be affected by. It takes about 1 ounce for every 20 gallons. It costs about 20 cents for 20 gallons, so it's very cost effective. It'll give you up to a 20% increase in mileage. Will save you about $2 a gallon on at current prices of $6 a gallon on fuel, or up to that. So that's one that we've evaluated, and that's the website you can go to, www.enerburninc.com. Now, the primary discussion for today is going to be on Alzheimer's disease mitigation and what we've done with stopping the progression of Alzheimer's. We get some reversal in early cases and even in some late cases, but I'm going to go through quite a bit of that. But we're going to talk about a non-invasive treatment that ValAsta through what's called VLED. We've developed this. It's an electromagnetic pulse that goes through the eye, and I'm going to go through and explain it. One of the things that we want to talk about is how is the causes of the proteins that cause Alzheimer's. How does the cell generate those? And the primary causes of Alzheimer's is tau protein and amyloid beta protein. But I'm going to talk about right now is tau protein. This top picture is a picture of a microtubule inside the cell. You can see in the background the little motor protein called a dyene. A dyene actually walks on 2 legs, just like this, and it's attached to that fatty membrane, a phospholipid membrane containing a huge concentration of proteins, and it's walking along the microtubule, carrying that. He's like a Santa Claus carrying a bag of toys. But that protein, and you can see it here, actually walks on 2 little legs. He's attached to the bag of proteins, and he's walking electromagnetically along this microtubule inside every cell in your body. Now, these little proteins that cause these proteins to stick together in this superhighway are called tau proteins. If for any reason, whether it's oxidative stress or whatever, causes a disruption of that microtubule, it'll come apart, and these tau proteins become free floating, and they float throughout the cell. The microtubule will come apart, and that's what is the beginning of Alzheimer's disease. In the brain, we have little organisms that will called microglia and astrocytes that in a healthy, high energetic brain environment, they'll chew those proteins up and clean up that debris from that collapse of that structure. So when we look at tau, or at amyloid protein, amyloid is produced in the cell membrane. It's cleaved. If it's not cleaved in the right place, it'll come off and it'll form these molecules, and the oxidative stress will cause them to misfold also. So here you have the microtubule coming apart, releasing taus. Here you have amyloid protein coming from the cell membrane that your immune system is not disposing of properly, or it's not folded properly for disposal, and it will line up in almost a crystalline structure. and it'll make plaques that will surround the axon of the neuron and choke it off. And it'll eventually kill that neuron. It takes anywhere from a few weeks to a few months of it being damaged. And once a neuron dies, it doesn't come back. But if a neuron is damaged and we can intervene quickly enough, we can get some reversal and reactivate that neuron. Now, we have two angles. We have a non-invasive technique that I'm going to show a demonstration of here shortly. But we also have an oxidative stress through ValAsta that also stops the misfolding of those proteins. And I'm going to go through a little bit of chemistry here. Causes of amyloid protein and tau misfolding. We have viruses will do it. Parasites like Tinea solium, trichinosis, the Creutzfeldt-Jacobs disease, which is caused by this, the prions or the misfolding of prions in the brain causes Creutzfeldt-Jacobs from these parasites. The other one is oxidative stress, reactive oxygen species. And in this case here, I'm going to talk about the hydroxyl free radical. It will react with the amino acid, usually the C-terminus end of an amino acid. From here back on this molecule would be an amine. So a protein is made up of a nitrogen end and a C-terminus or carboxylic acid end. Now we're going to talk about the free radical attack on the carboxylic acid end of this. So when that OH, having a zero charge, reacts with this oxygen, it forms a peroxyl, two oxygens together. This causes hydration and changes the configuration of any protein that it does this to. So that protein will misfold. And when it misfolds, it begins to line up because now it's very susceptible to water infiltration. It has a very high philic relationship with water, a water-loving side of the protein now, and that will cause crystallization, amyloid plaque formation. Now, the interesting thing of this is that if this peroxyl continues and reacts with the iron, either in the form of ferritin or heme iron, it will break that peroxyl, but it's too late. The protein is already misfolded. But the iron will then break that, and the resulting product, it re-establishes the hydroxyl free radical. This can then go on and misfold another protein. And this can go on and on and on until these hydroxyl free radicals are eliminated. And this is where ValAsta comes in. It eliminates this free radical. Now, so there's two approaches that ValAsta is taking and finding great success in ceasing the Alzheimer's progression, or in the prevention of it, preventing and stopping the progression. Reversal is not, doesn't appear to be possible right now. So ValAsta does it in two ways. We do it by the elimination of reactive oxygen species by the use of the antioxidant ValAsta. And the other one is the activation of the microglia through electromagnetic stimulation. I'm going to show you that device that we build, and it's taken years of research. It came out of MIT. MIT figured out what causes Alzheimer's disease by the accumulation of amyloid beta plaque and the deactivation of the microglia in the brain. Microglia are little organisms in our brain. About 15 to 20% of our brain cells are actually microglia. These things swing through the neuronal forest in our brain, around all the nerve endings, and if they see any form of debris, it can be bacterial, viral, debris from cellular disruption, it'll chew it up. and it'll recycle most of those amino acids or flush them out through the circulatory system through the blood-brain barrier. Now, one of the ways of doing it is as we get older, the energy, the power level in our brain dissipates. When that power level goes down, the microglia become lazy. And once our brain activity, more frequently than not, gets below about 30 hertz, 30 flashes per second, or about 15 hertz on an AC circuit. Once our brainwave pattern in the form of gamma waves gets down in that level, there's not enough power to activate the microglia. So the microglia go into hibernation. When microglia go into hibernation, the amyloid beta plaque builds up, accumulates around the neurons, and causes Alzheimer's disease by the destruction of those neurons. So what we did is I had worked with electromagnetic pulse weapons in the past and auditory weapons. These are non-lethal weapons, on how to change brainwave patterns through the use of flashing lights and incapacitate people with light and with sound without it being lethal. Well, one of the things that I found, and actually have a patent on this now, was that when I did the work with the with microalgae, I found that the algae didn't die when I strobed light at 40 flashes per second at a very specific wavelength and amplitude, voltage and current. Well, that equation is this equation. There won't be a test, but for those who have interest, the power is equal to the amplitude or the voltage times the current times the sine of the frequency times the time times the sine of the frequency times the time minus the phase angle. I know that's very complicated, and it took a computer to be able to send and condition the photon in the flashing light that when it strikes someone's eye, it's transmitted, that power is transmitted directly into the electron that goes from the eye to the back of the brain and activates the microglia. So now that we've spoken about the algorithm and the complexity of the physics behind how this device works, I want to go through some of the what is normal lighting, what is the frequency of the VLED, what's the strobe light effect. The normal lighting typically in our household is about 60 hertz or 120 flashes per second. That's the perfect learning frequency. For acquiring knowledge, for brain activity. Just to give you some examples, once we get below about 30 hertz, our brains begin to slow down. And when we get down around 15 hertz, the brain pattern slows down quite a bit. That's 30 flashes per second. We can get very relaxed. If we get much below 10 hertz, then we start running into the frequencies that can affect the communication in the hippocampus and communicating these frequencies back and forth, both hemispheres of the brain. It's very, very interesting evolutionary-wise. I don't know whether people have driven down a highway on a very sunny day and the trees are there and the shadows by the speed of the car. It can actually make people very annoyed, but you get that strobing effect from the shadows. Well, the reason is that our brains have never seen or been able to adjust to frequencies like that because we've never been able to go that fast down a highway. So our hippocampus is not used to that. Now, if in some people they're exposed to that frequency, you'll see their brainwave pattern become very disoriented in their brain. They can't reconcile it. So the brain will actually cause a seizure, knock them down, try to reset the brain and bring them back up again. The sunlight is non-pulsating and therefore it's not applicable at all to this type of technology. But I want to show you the device This is the device. You can see right now it's on 20. This device has a plug that plugs into the wall, standard outlet. Also has an output. In this case here, it's an extension cord. We plug the lamp into, and we turn the lamp on. And but with the device, you can see the maximum is 20, the minimum is 10, just by turning the potentiometer here. We block out the frequencies below this because they can have a tendency to cause some problems with those who are predisposed towards epilepsy. We don't go above that. Those frequencies are for other purposes, and we don't really want to plan those frequencies right now with regard to Alzheimer's. It's very, very easy to operate. There's a red and green button right here. See if you can see that. And when I press that, since the light is on and it's plugged in, the light should come on at 20 hertz or 40 flashes per second. Just like that. Now, you might have some difficulty. I can assure you it is flashing. I can pick it up primarily in my peripheral vision. But you have to be exposed to the photons. It cannot be behind you. It has to be, the photons coming off of that bulb have to be able to have access directly to your eyes. Okay. Now, I have mine set beside my TV. You watch it for 40 to 45 minutes every morning, and it imparts enough power into your occipital lobe to activate your microglia so that they can be working all day long in the elimination of amyloid beta plaque. To turn it off, go to the red-green button and press it one time, and it'll shut off. This device can be used to look at predispositions for epilepsy without having a seizure. So you can look at the gamma wave frequency, the alpha, beta, and theta frequencies in the brain, and use this device. And in those cases, we would not block out the lower frequencies. But there's a medical setting that we can use for this if you're using it for as a diagnostic tool for epilepsy. But basically, you turn it down, you watch the brainwave pattern in the brain, and when you see it become chaotic, then you'll know that that person is predisposed for epilepsy. So it is something that we can actually reprogram this device for a number of outcomes, but epilepsy is one that can be used as a diagnostic tool. The video for that shows all of this can be found at the website there on the slide. It's at VLEDusa.com. I would suggest anyone interested in this device. This device costs $485. You have it for the rest of your life. You can use it to treat hundreds of people. For example, in nursing homes, they'll change the frequency in the rec center from a 60 hertz frequency, which is normal lighting, down to this frequency. And the people there are all being treated. And by using testing protocols like the Montreal protocol, we can show that the Alzheimer's progression in those people, the Alzheimer's progression stops. And that is so reassuring. Alzheimer's is such a terrible disease. We need something to detect early and to prevent any further progression of that disease. And with that, I'm going to close, and please keep your questions coming in. Thank you.